Hello everyone, this is me, GamePenguin21. Today we're going to be looking at one Canadian gamer video because it's the one video that I wanted to talk about this week, and quite frankly, if I were to make another video on anything else, I would lose my mind. Because, one, the three videos that I wanted to work on over the course of these last 3 weeks, all of them failed. That's being the second response to the part 2 of the Vampire Survivor situation. That video was long dead, and quite frankly, I can't sit down and make it anymore because it just would not get the views that I would want it to, and honestly, I don't have anything else to add to that concept. Number 2 is the response to the Hi-Fi Rush and the whole satanic panic situation around that. That's still in the works, but quite frankly, I think what I'll just do is I'll make a quick summary of it, of one, and then just respond to the respond that the other dude, like, when he doubled down on the actual situation, responding to people like Mischief. Because honestly, I can't do part 1 because that video ballooned to like 30 to 40 minutes, and I know that I release 30 to 40 minutes videos like every week or two. But quite frankly, I want to release smaller videos that aren't as taxing to make, because even though my content is technically easy, I don't want to be sitting on specific content. Long story short, I can't really sit down and make that video. It's annoying to me, and the video probably wouldn't get the views that I want because I'm so late on videos. And finally, of course, is the last one being the part 2, or the response to Atomic Heart, and how it is the next coming of the communist propaganda thing. I would love to make that video still, but I think that it's so dumb, and I don't want to bring light to the person anymore because, quite frankly, I think everyone understands that Atomic Heart's not really communist propaganda if you've actually played the game. It's made by a Russian studio, sure, but if you play the game, you'll understand why it's not, because it's basically ripping off BioShock, and if you know BioShock, you're going to probably understand the entire twist of the story. In any case, today we're going to be looking at Canadian Gamer because I saw Joe from Seattle cover this one. And quite frankly, this one's a more interesting topic to talk about because it's covering the Canadian Gamer. And he is talking about emulation and how it's not, and how he has the same mentality as Harmon Smith. So that should put things into perspective. Anyway, long enough intro, let's get started.
How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer, coming at you with another video. Hope you're all doing well. Been pretty busy today. I did spend a couple of hours fine-tuning, playing around with the settings on both my recently acquired Sony camcorder, which I have here.
He then is going to talk about a Sony camcorder, so we can just kind of skip past that and get to his actual fucking point.
But I did want to talk about emulation. Now, we've talked about it before on the channel, and I know this video is probably going to ruffle quite a few feathers. But hear me out on this. So if you play your games on an emulator, you know, whether it be on your smartphone or a modern TV, or maybe on your desktop or your laptop, or even maybe your Nintendo Switch or whatever platform you're using, you know, that's fine. If that's how you want to play your games, if you enjoy it that way, that's fine. But for me personally, I feel like, you know, most, maybe not all, but most that are playing on an emulator, they're just filthy casuals that want a piece of the action. So, you know, I understand not everyone can afford real hardware. Not everyone has the room for it, but, you know, there are...
Yes, because the actual hardware, in order to play these same games that are, like, old as shit, we can't really get them without spending a huge amount of money. And yeah, it is actually easier to carry around an SD card filled to the brim with all of your ROMs and emulators and things like that. And I don't get why that's like such a hard concept to grasp. And maybe, sure, certainly there are like casual, quote unquote, people out there that play these kinds of games. But at the same time, certain elements of the more hardcore stuff are built on emulation. For example, I believe Melee is played mostly on emulation at this point, if not entirely. Like, I remember a story where Nintendo literally shut down emulation for a tournament for money, like an actual tournament, a Melee tournament, where they shut the whole thing down because they were using an emulator. I think they were using Dolphin. Maybe it wasn't Dolphin. Maybe it was a different, whatever the fuck service that they were using. They were using an emulator to do Melee or Smash or something like that. But at the same time, you have the NES Classic Edition right next to it. Isn't that an emulator as well? I can't really tell from this distance because this camera, though it's good, it's desaturated to shit, and a lot of it doesn't look good. It definitely, like, this doesn't look like you made a new camera. It looks marginally better, 100%. It doesn't look like you're filming on your laptop anymore. But at the same time, the NES Classic Edition, I believe that runs a lot on emulation, and a lot of newer consoles, like a newer retro console stuff, runs on emulation. Like, I'm fairly certain the Atari Flashback does a lot of emulation as well. It emulates an Atari system. It's just easier to do that rather than to rework it for new hardware, or to buy the old hardware and then buy the original disc or whatnot. It's not practical. Practicality is important when it comes to emulation, and we'll get into a little bit more of it later. So continuing on.
That are greedy, they have to fucking download every emulator under the sun and download the thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of ROMs and put them on an SD card and load them up onto their emulator and play it that way. You people should be fucking ashamed of yourselves, seriously, and I don't have to go in any further on why that is.
I hate that, by the way. I always hated it when in his videos he would go out and he would make like a really cool point and he would just say, "You're an idiot, you're a dumbass, you're a fuck knuckle." Well, he wouldn't say fuck knuckle, but you're a douche or something like that. He would say like an insult, like it was funny, and then in post or whatever, he'd hit a button and he would have that clapping sound. That always annoys me. You'll notice it throughout the video, and when I've covered him before, it's gross, it's nasty. Just either get good at entertaining people with just your voice, or balance the audio to where it doesn't overpower what the fuck you're saying. It's not helpful.
So, recently I've been playing a little bit of emulation. A little bit. We're talking a select number of games, and I've been playing them on my desktop using a controller that's not an original Sega Genesis controller or a Super Nintendo controller. And most recently I was playing Outrunners on the Sega Genesis. And man, does it ever suck sitting like this in front of a computer, playing these old games on a 1080p modern HP display is what I have. It's just, man, it robs the game of its experience as opposed to playing these older titles on a CRT. So those of you who have been watching the channel, you know I have a CRT, as you can see a little bit of footage here. And man, I've been playing on the CRT quite a bit the last couple of days. I was playing Pitfall, the Mayan Adventure, as well as a little bit more of Outrun and a few other games yesterday, having some fun with the CRT. And I have to tell you guys, and if you don't own a CRT, again, you may not fully understand, especially for the younger audience. Once you experience these games on a CRT with original hardware, it is next to impossible. It is next to impossible to go back to emulation on a modern display. Oh my fucking god.
Okay. Jesus Christ. First of all, balance your goddamn audio again. Like, it pains me every single time. Not only did he have the audio of what he was originally, like, of his recording for the first time when he did this in the one take, but he has the audacity to not dull down the audio in the take that he's in the video that he's putting over it. There's a reason why whenever I use gameplay that I mute the gameplay audio, because it lets people focus on my voice without having to listen to the game in the background, having all of the different ups and downs, and it's hard to hear my voice and hard to make me out. It's meant to help focus the person. With this, much like the little rant that I had earlier about his thing, if he just literally lowers the audio by like 5 to 10 decibels, it would be such a much better watching experience, like in full stop, if he was to try to make that even better. But even still, yes, it would be good to have the original audio, or not audio, the original hardware and shit, and on like a CRT and stuff. And by the way, that is a small CRT. That's pretty small, but at the same time, it's still taking up a pretty decent area of the space that you're existing in. For example, that's taking up a little bit less space than the top of that actual like shelf there. It's even just as wide. Yeah, And it is a space problem because, yeah, certainly the CRT isn't the best, but what if it breaks? It's not the original
something
Nintendo
blows
DS, but I own
in
the
monitor
original
setup
Nintendo
or
DS,
whatever,
and I can tell
and
you,
you just can't do
the
it.
graphics
And at the same
look
time,
a little
that's
bit
the reason why
crunchy,
a lot of
but
emulators
I
come
love
with
that
because it
filters
looked
and ways
really crunchy
to
and
adjust
fun.
it so that way it
I don't know,
looks more like the
it's
original, just on modern hardware, and having it run better. Having it run better is far different than having it just run on the original hardware, because sometimes the original hardware sucks. Not all the time. Like I would definitely say I've been trying to replay a little bit of Mario Kart DS on my Nintendo Switch, which he still hates, by the way, because it's gonna emulate everything. It's like it does, and it can, and it will, and it's a really good piece of hardware. It's one of those things where you look at what he says, and upon breaking it down, you realize the reason why emulation is a thing. The amount of money that you'd have to get in order to get the original Genesis, a working original Genesis, by the way, you'd have to get a copy of the actual game, and not on like a ROM or anything like that. Or you can make a fake bootleg copy, technically speaking, on like an official thing, because they do actually, I think, sell bootleg copies as well, like their original or whatever. I don't know. But you'd have to get that. You then have to get a CRT, which those can be pretty expensive depending on where you buy them from, and I don't think that they're still producing them. And then you'd have to make sure that you hook everything up with the right cords and stuff like that and put it all together, and then you can play a game in its original purposes rather than, say, download an emulator and download the ROM onto it. Both of which is really good for not only experiencing older games in newer hardware and experiencing them pretty good, but you can still run emulators on CRTs if you hook them up properly. I'm like 90% sure that you can do that. Anyway, we're going to move on.
It's bad enough I have this older flat screen next to me, which you guys can't see here, a JVC, a real nice flat screen. But even still, I have my OG Xbox and my PS2 hooked up to it, and then I got my Wii U over there hooked up to a modern. The Wii U, I guess, is fine because that's HDMI, but sometimes I play the Wii games on it. But like even to play the original Xbox and the PS2 on a TV that is not a CRT, it robs it of the experience 100%.
If you're one of those people who say that you need to buy the original stuff because it robs it of the original, no. It's just a preference thing. You prefer the original hardware. And for me, I don't really care. I would much rather have a lot of the modern conveniences of playing those games on my emulator system. It's a personal preference thing. If you want that experience, go for it. Go off, King. But not everyone has the money. Not everyone has the time to track them down. Not even everyone sometimes even have the patience to wait for it. But in all honesty, it's... All right. Anyway, we're going to skip a little bit around here, so let's continue.
100%. So I have been slowly sort of looking for a second CRT to probably replace this JVC because it's really, like I said, it's affecting my ability to enjoy these older titles. You know, how awesome would it be? I was just talking about this with someone today, to be able to play a game like the original Resident Evil 4 like this, with proper 4:3 aspect ratio on a CRT in a dimly lit room with a nice set of earphones. And that would be the ideal way to play this, would it not? Not on a fucking 16:9 flat screen, that's for damn sure.
Not really. He uses Resident Evil 4 as an example here, but the original intention, technically speaking, was that it was actually meant for the GameCube, not on a PS2. But at the same time, one thing that's like stupid is that Resident Evil 4 has been ported to a lot of different things, and recently is getting a remake that's coming out sometime later. And let me just say, I appreciate Resident Evil 4 because I recently actually beat the game. I'm working out on the whole New Game Plus modes and stuff, and the Ava DLC bits and things, because that's what back when you finished the game, you didn't technically 100% complete the entire game the entire time. But Resident Evil 4 had an HD remake, and that's what I bought, and that's what I played through. I played through that entire game, all of it, on my Steam Deck. I didn't even play it on my actual computer because I only was playing it in my spare time that I had when I was in class, and whenever I wanted to bust out some Resident Evil, I was able to bust it out on my Steam Deck. But I was able to bust out my Steam Deck and just play the game. I don't know if I lost anything from it because it was still sticky. It still had a lot of the modern conveniences. And yeah, it was the HD remake, but you know what else got an HD fucking remake? Wind Waker. Like, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which is a game that can also be emulated, but also is a very good HD remake of a classic game with more modern conveniences. Resident Evil 2 is a bad example because it can work on a lot of things. And again, it's getting a remake, so a lot of people are going to be playing the same game as whatever. It's bad example, not even the greatest of points. It's, again, how you would like to personally preference the game. And that's what I always say when I talk about these Xbox and Sony and PlayStation fanboys. I know Sony and PlayStation are kind of the same thing. But when I talk about fanboys, and they always say, oh, it's best on the original hardware, how the developer intended it. The developer intended it to be played on whatever the fuck hardware that was available at the time, and to be able to be played for millions, if not billions of people to play this game, or as many people as fucking possible to play this goddamn game, because they don't care. At the end of the day, this game is their livelihood, and this game makes them money, and they are happy to do it because it is something that they enjoyed making more often than not. It's not like a rocket science thing. It's ridiculous. Anyway.
So, yeah, the whole fucking emulation, a lot of the gamers out there, it's like they've showed up at a Chinese buffet. You know, they want to have a little taste of everything, but they don't want to sit down and enjoy one thing. You know, they download an emulator, and then they download a rash of games, and they dip their toe in the water. Oh, this game's okay. Oh, we go to the next game, the next game, the next game, the next game. And they never really commit to any of the games they're playing for the most part. Not everybody. But that's the whole idea with these mini consoles. It's a buffet, you know? It's for the filthy casual. That's exactly what it is. And that's why I don't touch these mini consoles. I have them, but I don't really touch them. You know, again, I can't stand the way these old games look on modern displays. I can't fucking stand it. You know, it's kind of like the FPGA consoles. They're okay, you know, fine, whatever. You know, this is obviously really good. Really good, right? You know, same with the analog Mega SG or the Super NT, you know, that's great. But I find a hard time wrapping my head around why you would want to play these games on these super sharp displays when you can play them on original hardware. So, yeah, you know, this is awesome, don't get me wrong. It is really awesome, it is. But...
Okay, so both of those... Oh, well then, I'm fucking sorry. I take back exactly what I said then. Pointing to both the Genesis and the mini console Genesis and NES. Both of those are emulator systems. Well then, fuck me in the ass. I was wrong. Look, dude, if you don't like emulation, why the hell did you buy both of those consoles? Because both of those mini consoles are made specifically to repackage old games. Again, I mentioned my Atari Flashback before. That thing does the exact same thing. Yeah, it's meant for people who don't want to necessarily commit to games, kind of, or for people who want to play a game they haven't played in a while. Again, for me, as a personal example, I have a ton of games that I haven't played in a while. One of the biggest ones, again, is Mario Kart DS. I've been trying to get through and grind my way out of it. I haven't really committed much because I've been doing other things, but it's still a good game to play through. And you're like, oh, well, and the analogy, again, in this context doesn't work, because you're saying, oh, the person here is trying to go to the buffet and just dip their toe into various aspects of this thing. It's like, that's not entirely true. A person might want to play from a specific era just to learn about the games or something like that. And again, just making these whole blanket statements of, oh, they're filthy casuals. Most people, if not 90% of the audience of mainstream video games nowadays, are casual people who weren't alive when these games or whatever were made. So they don't appreciate it because they don't have the same nostalgic factor that you say that you have or have the knowledge of. It's... And yeah, certainly, you're going to be able to use all these words against me, but that doesn't make it bad if someone wants to spend their money or spend their time to get an emulator system, like the official ones that you have behind you, or to download an emulator and play some of the games, because it's not really illegal if they're not selling the games. If I were to again buy any and all of the Genesis games, Sega isn't making money from that shit. Same with the original Nintendo console and its games. They're not making money because it'd have to go to a secondary source. At least with emulation, at least in terms of with emulation, you don't have to like go through a middleman and possibly have it to where the thing might break on you unless you and it's all software based. I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
Part of me thinks it would be more awesome to have a Game Boy Advance, the original model, the bigger model, and just getting a screen replacement that gives you a better backlight and playing it that way. I don't know. Once you experience like the scan lines and the taste of the original hardware and the original controller in your hand, and the CRT plays a huge part of it. And there's a lot of gamers out there, and they use the whole excuse, well, I don't have room for a CRT. Well, that's bullshit, because my CRT is like 12 inches. Like, it's not a big CRT. It's really not. But once you're sitting right in front of it, your eyes adjust to the...
Because we can't afford it, because we don't want to have the shill out the space for things we're only going to be using for one particular game or something like that, because we feel that their investment of time and money into something that's going to give us this whole experience that you're talking about is not worth it in our eyes. It works the same thing, like this entire concept of emulation versus not emulation and like original concept, that also applies. Like, this whole argument here also can apply to fucking exclusives and how fanboys say the exact same shit but just about exclusives, saying that yes, on the original actual hardware, it plays better, it's the best place to play it, you gotta play it because this is the original intent of the console manufacturers and developers and stuff, blah 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 blah. It's the same shit, same shit, different anus. Shut the hell up. It's not because we don't want that original experience. It's because modern conveniences and modern hardware make those experiences better in the long term for various purposes. The biggest one being preservation. Okay, there's still about half of this video left, and quite frankly, I think that I cannot do it anymore because this video is going to be super long as is. And I'm probably going to be releasing this one next week anyway for Tuesday. I don't remember specifically. I'm working on a couple videos right now, but this Canadian Gamer one is got me so infuriated, and I just need to get this out quickly because this video is whatever. But yeah, there's still like another 6 minutes of this video of him probably going on and repeating his points. But I think tackling his main points is fine, and I think that I'll leave that be to where it is. In short, is emulation bad, and does it take away from your experience of the game? No, because there are ways to make the experience look better for you particularly, and there are ways to make the experience look more sharp. And again, you can get the original hardware, but it costs more. It has a lot more setup and requirements to do, and it's just a lot of expensive, and quite frankly, you can't find them as easier. And that's assuming that everything works as is. There's a reason why repackaging the console with an emulator stuffed inside of it became the norm for a while. Like, I remember not Tiger Electronics, but the various plug-and-play consoles that existed for a while. The mini consoles that you have behind you, there's a reason why they sell. It's because they are very cheap to make, but at the same time can be sold for a lot because people want that experience, but on a more modern and convenient hardware, because it's for the sake of preservation most of the time. And again, is emulation taking away from your particular experience? For me, no, not at all. I don't care. Because, quite frankly, I just want to play the game that I have and that I liked and that I played for a while but stopped playing for whatever reason because I lost the original cartridge and whatnot. And it's just bad arguments on. Anyway, I think that's going to be me done for this time. I'm gonna have to edit down the video and speed things up and slow things down just to get some of the concept out of here. But I've been recording for a bit. In any case, my name is GamePango21. Please like, comment, favorite, and subscribe like always. This video of emulation is weird. Play the games however you want to play them. And a peace.
Of wasting any time, I've got a lot to say, can't hold it in this time, got no feeling.